Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money,
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling. Chatter.
Money is, in my opinion, the most important and necessary thing to have in society because honestly, without money, you can't survive. If you can't afford food, you can't eat. If you can't afford somewhere to live, you won't be protected and comfortable. And the idea that you can just get a job if you're extremely poor has some flaws because in order to get a job, you often need to have a permanent address. You need to be accessible through a phone and you need to be able to afford transportation to get to the job, and you should be able to shower and have access to nice clothes. And it's not easy to accomplish these things if you're living in poverty. Not to mention mental or physical disabilities as well as addictions make it difficult to find a job and keep a job. Poverty is defined as an economic state that does not allow for the provision of basic family and child needs, such as adequate food, clothing, and housing. The proportion of families that live in poverty varies greatly across the United States, from about 30% in Louisiana to 7% in New Hampshire, but it does exist in some form basically everywhere. And what I've been learning is that poverty has so many negative effects that translate to your physical health, your mental health, your kids, and more. And it's greatly increasing children's risk for chronic health problems, school failure, both out of wedlock to adolescence, low self-esteem, and so much more. Plus, statistics and census show that poverty is actually rising, perhaps in some part due to COVID. And let's also think about what these kids can have for dinner. People who can't afford nourishing meals are often just going to resort to fast food, which is also often the only thing that is close to certain communities. It's much higher in cholesterol and fat, and it's ultimately not as healthy and nourishing as other more expensive foods. And the foods that really nourish our bodies being so much more expensive than fast food is a serious problem on its own. There are also dental and vision disparities because kids often break their glasses or get cavities, but if you don't have enough money to replace the glasses or to fix the dental issues, this has a health and an educational impact. And in terms of mental health issues, poor children have more mental health problems than non-poor, and they only increase the longer someone is in a state of poverty. There's antisocial behaviors, which is very common. It leads to behavioral disadvantages and just having a hard time making friends, talking to teachers, seeking more help. Depression is definitely common, low self-esteem and a search for self-identity, higher levels of conduct disorder and behavioral problems. The direct physical effects will affect your health, your academic performance, so poverty can lead to higher rates of physical limitation like heart disease, diabetes, stroke, other chronic conditions. And in addition, kids from poor families had lower IQs and less effective executive functioning, which is in the prefrontal part of the brain. It deals with things like working memory and cognitive ability, which just directly translates to your academic performance. And even going back to depression, Americans living in families that earn less than $35,000 a year are 4 times as likely to report being nervous and 5 times as likely to report being sad all or most of the time. This is depression. This is mental illnesses. And I think if you are not eating healthy, you have to worry about your safety. You have to worry about how to pay for things. Overall, having financial issues that you can't seem to resolve, it would be very difficult to be happy just because of how important money is in our society. Poverty and your socioeconomic status have a clear and huge correlation to your health, to your development as a child, your life expectancy even, and your happiness. And it's a definite problem in the United States.